Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today, your primetime destination. News, newsmakers, talking points Thursday night. This is where we'll bring you news without the noise. Our big talking point, GST 2.0, the goods and services tax reform. Will it offset the impact of Donald Trump's tariffs on India? Among my special guests will be the former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram. Also, we'll have the Prime Minister's Advisory Panel member Nilesh Shah joining us, among others, as we take a deep dive into different aspects of the GST reforms. But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9 tonight. Next generation GST reforms for India ahead of the festive season spark off widespread approval. Taxes slashed on wide range of household use products and insurance policies. Prime Minister says tax cuts will boost ease of living. The Congress party cautiously welcomes GST reforms. Former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram welcomes them but says the cuts are too late. Asks where were the reforms for the last 8 years while millions suffered. In a big move for peace in Manipur, Kukis agreed to reopen the National Highway 2. Kuki Zoo bodies pledges to work with security forces to ensure peace along this critical route. Slight relief for Delhiites as Yamuna River slowly starts to recede, but it is still flowing above the danger mark. Delhi government maintains round-the-clock vigil. Thousands shifted to relief camps. The death toll rises to 43 now in Punjab's unprecedented floods. More than 1,900 villages still inundated. Over 3.8 lakh people severely impacted by the raging rivers. Showdown over the Prime Minister's abuse row escalates in Bihar. NDA observes 5-hour Bihar Bandh, claiming insult to mothers. Opposition hits back. Scares where was the Prime Minister when his members were targeting opposition leaders and women in the opposition. High drama in the West Bengal Assembly. Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee calls BJP Bangla Virodi. BJP MLAs stormed the well chanting Jai Shri Ram slogans. BJP Chief Whip reportedly injured. Several MLAs are suspended. Enforcement Directorate now grills cricketer Shikhar Dhawan for over 8 hours for allegedly promoting an illegal betting app. An Italian fashion mogul, Giorgio Armani, dies at 91 due to age-related illness. He was known for his modern Italian style and elegance that made him a global brand name. But first, let's start with tonight's top story. It's the day after the Modi government unveiled what is being described by the government as GST Reforms 2.0. Reforms that have reduced the tax rates and simplified them, just 2 tax rates of 5% and 18%. The government has hailed the reforms, saying that taxes will have a major impact on consumers and the ease of living. The Prime Minister, who spoke on it today, slammed taxes under the previous UPA government and lauded what he said was the NDA's double dhamaka of GST and income tax reforms before Diwali. The opposition claims that they are the ones who've been banging on for the last 8 years, especially Rahul Gandhi, for rationalization of taxes. In this credit war, first let's listen in to Prime Minister Modi.
इससे भारत की शानदार अर्थव्यवस्था में पंचरत्न जुड़े हैं। पहला, टैक्स सिस्टम कहीं अधिक सिंपल हुआ। दूसरा, भारत के नागरिकों की क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ और बढ़ेगी। तीसरा, कंजम्पशन और ग्रोथ दोनों को नया बूस्टर मिलेगा। और चौथा, ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस से निवेश और नौकरी को बल मिलेगा। और पांचवा, विकसित भारत के लिए कोऑपरेटिव फेडरलिज्म यानी राज्यों और केंद्र की साझेदारी और मजबूत होगी। साथियों, आजकल महंगाई की दर भी बहुत निचले स्तर पर है, नियंत्रण में है। और यही तो प्रो पीपल गवर्नेंस है। जब जनहित और राष्ट्रहित में फैसले लिए जाते हैं तब देश आगे बढ़ता है। मैंने देशवासियों से भी ये वादा किया था कि इस दिवाली और छठ पूजा से पहले खुशियों का डबल धमाका होगा। जिस भावना को लेकर हम चल रहे हैं, उसी भावना पर चलते हुए कल भारत सरकार ने राज्यों के साथ मिलकर के एक बहुत बड़ा निर्णय किया है और बहुत महत्वपूर्ण निर्णय है। अब जीएसटी और भी ज्यादा सिंपल हो गया है, सरल हो गया है और 22 सितंबर सोमवार जब नवरात्र का पहला दिन है और ये सारी चीजों का मातृशक्ति को संबंध तो बहुत ही रहता है और इसलिए नवरात्रि के इस प्रथम दिवस पर जीएसटी का जो एक रिफॉर्म वर्जन है, नेक्स्ट जनरेशन रिफॉर्म किया हुआ, वो लागू हो जाएगा।
So Prime Minister hailing the reforms that have taken place in the tax rate structure. Now this rate rationalization is the one reform that seems to have got a broad consensus. What's happening, as I said at the outset, is a fight to take credit for it from between the government and the opposition. Listen in to the reactions.
We've reduced the slabs. There shall be only 2 slabs. All this will be effective 22nd September 2025, which is the first day of Navaratri.
A day after the GST Council decided to rationalize tax rates, keeping just 2 main slabs of 5% and 18% and 40% for sin goods, both government and opposition are claiming credit. The BJP is calling the tax cuts a gift from Prime Minister Narendra Modi ahead of the festive season.
कांग्रेस का दोहरा चरित्र यह भी है कि काउंसिल में तो उनके नेता समर्थन करते हैं, लेकिन बाहर राहुल गांधी उन्हीं फैसलों का विरोध करते हैं। जीएसटी दरों में व्यापक संशोधन करके देशवासियों को दुर्गा पूजा, दशहरा और दिवाली से पहले ही प्रधानमंत्री जी ने देशवासियों को बम्पर गिफ्ट दिया है।
The Congress claims the rationalization was first suggested by Rahul Gandhi, who had described GST as Gabbar Singh tax.
பல தலைவர்கள், பொருளாதார நிபுணர்கள் இது தவறு, இதை திருத்த வேண்டும் என்று சொன்னார்கள். இதை உணர்ந்து தவறுகளை திருத்தியதற்காக நான் நன்றி சொல்கிறேன். 8 ஆண்டுகள் நடுத்தர மக்களை, ஏழை மக்களை கசக்கி பிழிந்தார்கள்.
The industry has given a thumbs up.
From the industry perspective, we are very, very positive and bullish about this step the government has taken. I think government is very, very clear that they have to drive the consumption forward. The relaxation that they had given in income tax, then the repo rate reduction by the RBI, I think collectively all these steps will certainly drive the consumption way forward, and it will create a momentum of growth in the country, in the economy.
I believe that this reform and the cut on GST for small cars particularly, and to some extent for bigger cars, will result in the growth of the car industry, which has been stagnating, as you know, for the last 2-3 years. That growth will go back to the original 7 to 8% which we were experiencing in the past.
The GST rationalization comes at a time when the industry is facing global trade headwinds, and fresh tariff hikes by the US have raised concerns about India's export prospects. Analysts expect the boost in domestic consumption to offset some of its impact. Bureau Report, India Today.
And joining me now is P. Chidambaram, former Union Finance Minister, Congress senior MP. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Chidambaram. You've, in your initial remarks this morning, said this is a much needed step, but it's come 8 years too late. There will be those who will say better late than never, Mr. Chidambaram. 2016-17 was a very different time. GST had just been brought in 8 years later. We're seeing what the government is calling the next reforms of GST, GST 2.0. Do you agree?
The headline of my tweet was, I welcome the reduction and rationalization of rates. The shoulder was, it's 8 years too late. So please read both of them. I did not say only that it is 8 years too late. I welcome the reduction. I welcome the rationalization. But I'm duty bound to point out that we said it 8 years ago, even when the GST law was being made and introduced in Parliament.
But Mr. Chidambaram, with due regard, 8 years ago, it was very difficult even to achieve a consensus of the kind. To be fair to the late Arun Jaitley, he was able to achieve, the NDA government then was able to achieve something that your government was not. So the first step was to build a basic consensus. Now that we've had 8 years experience, the government could say we are in a better position to actually put together a more simplified rate structure.
I disagree. I disagree strongly. You don't know what happened, or you've forgotten what happened. I'm a player of that age and era, and Arun Jaitley was a player. So was Mr. Yashwant Sinha. Mr. Yashwant Sinha constituted the group of finance ministers. I inherited it, and I worked with them. Every finance minister supported the GST. We were able to persuade them in 3 or 4 meetings. Only 2 opposed it. One was Gujarat and one was Madhya Pradesh. What the Gujarat representative and what the Madhya Pradesh finance minister told me will be recorded in history sometime rather. But they opposed it. They say we have no instructions to agree to a GST. And we wanted to pass the law. We wanted to pass the law. I approached both Mr. Jaitley and Ms. Swaraj, the 2 leaders of opposition. Mrs. Swaraj put it very clearly, we have no appetite to support any law on reform. That's where we left it. This government was able to bring, obviously, this government was able to bring Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh on board, and all other finance ministers remained on board, and they were able to introduce the law. But remember, Mr. Dr. Arvind Subramaniam, the chief economic advisor to the government of India, headed by Mr. Narendra Modi, published a report called Towards a Neutral Revenue Rate, in which he recommended one single rate. Departing from that recommendation, they introduced multiple rates. That's what I'm criticizing. Okay. We criticized it 8 years ago, and we are saying you brought it down to 2 rates 8 years later.
But let's come to the present. From the time when Rahul Gandhi, your leader, kept saying Gabbar Singh taxed for GST, to today where you have said in that same statement, it's a good and simple tax. So you seem to be agreeing that the government has got the drift completely right this time, that you need a much more simplified tax regime with just 2 tax slabs and of course 40% as a sin tax. But by and large, you seem to believe that this is the right step forward. This is a step that will bring down presumably prices and thereby hopefully stimulate demand, consumption and investment. Am I right?
I said so in my tweet. You're repeating to me what I said.
No, so you're agreeing with so you and Nirmala Sitharaman for once are on the same page.
Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman has agreed with the Congress that it should be a good and simple tax. We have been saying this for 8 years. No, GST means a good and simple tax. She has come around to the view. I'm glad she agrees with us.
No, but that is, you see, quite apart from the credit taking that every party will say that, we told you so.
I'm not taking credit. I'm pointing out facts.
But do you, Mr. Chidambaram, agree that as a result of the GST being brought at the time that it has, it could offset the impact of tariffs and the tariff war with Donald Trump, and could also stimulate a virtuous cycle of demand, consumption and investment?
Not entirely. it will largely offset the low rate of consumption. It will partially offset Mr. Trump's tariffs. But there are several other things that have to be taken to boost consumption and to counteract Mr. Trump's tariffs. This is a good step. This is a first step, but this is not a sufficient step. This is a necessary step, but not a sufficient step.
What, according to you, would constitute a sufficient step to build on what the government has done with GST?
Yes, I'll tell you. First, they must review the GST laws. It's a very complicated law. It's cumbersome to administer. It's very difficult to comply with the law. They must simplify the law. They must simplify the forms. They must make it easy enough for a single shopkeeper or a trader to fill the form on his own. Today, nobody can fill the form without professional assistance. And professionals are mushroomed even in small towns. Every shopkeeper, every trader has to employ a professional, even if his turnover is about 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs. That is one. Secondly, the manner in which the GST law is administered is horrendous. Ask traders. I've appeared in several cases involving GST disputes. I mean, the manner in which the administration of GST is equal to the ED administering PMLA. You must make it a trader, seller friendly law. You can't threaten people with imprisonment. You can't allow your officers to go berserk and arrest people. This is a civil law. It's a tax law. If there is a tax violation, inadvertently or wittingly, you must punish him by a civil penalty. Why do you throw him in jail? Therefore, there are many, many other things. Why don't you talk to a couple of GST specialist lawyers who will tell you the kind of complications that traders face?
Mr. Chidambaram, I've actually spoken to friends who are business persons in Mumbai. They've
What do
spoken,
they tell you?
They've spoken about the Inspector Raj that has come into the GST. Nobody's denying that. I just want to ask you, therefore, so your concern is reduce the costs of compliance, ensure that the Inspector Raj ends, ensure that the discretionary powers that the inspectors have are reduced. But net, therefore, you're saying that this is a first step, an important step, but you're saying this cannot be the culmination of ensuring that we are truly a one nation, one tax structure. You want to see now compliance at the next level, the costs being reduced, and also the profiteering that goes on in the name of GST to also be reduced. Am I correct?
Yes, 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 to every suggestion you've made.
Well, it's not often that Mr. Chidambaram agrees with suggestions that I make, so that's also a positive. This seems to be a new day, Mr. Chidambaram. You've agreed to a large extent with what Ms. Sitharaman has done. You're also agreeing to some of the suggestions I've thrown on the show, but net, do you believe that this will, I come back to it one last time, trigger a virtuous cycle that the economy, which has already grown substantially in the last quarter, the numbers were 7.8%. Do you believe that this will trigger that domestic demand as well as investment and business confidence?
One swallow does not make a summer. You can't gauge a trend by one quarter's numbers. The one quarter number, the last quarter, has been severely criticized because they use a deflator of 0.9. I don't know if you understand the implications of using such a low deflator. Be that as it may, we will discuss it another time. The point is, this is a good step. This is a progressive step, although it's 8 years later, I'll have to say that. But there are many other steps they have to take. For example, lakhs of MSMEs closed down following GST and following COVID. They are still closed. The COVID is behind us, but GST is still with us. And unless you compensate them or redress their grievances, they will not start again, which is why we lost so many thousands of jobs in the MSME sector. They have to be revived. They have to be reopened. They need working capital.
Right.
They need capital assistance. That is one thing. Then you have to simplify the rules on the forms. Their forms were not prescribed for several years after the GST law came into effect on 1/7/2007. They had ad hoc forms. Now they have replaced the ad hoc forms with regular forms.
1/7/2017, yes.
Regular forms, but those forms have to be simplified.
Okay.
Therefore, several things have to be done, and non-GST measures have to be taken. For example, you have to reduce the household debt. You have to boost the household savings. You have to address the issue of stagnant wages in rural areas. They don't fall under the umbrella of GST, but they have to be done in parallel with the GST reform.
I'm going to leave it there, Mr. Chidambaram, because I think you've given us where you stand, to some extent where the opposition stands, but also hopefully you've expressed what many would say today at least is a bipartisan view in the desire to kickstart the animal spirits of this economy. But I appreciate you joining me here on the show tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's raise then the big questions tonight. You've heard P. Chidambaram giving that critical view, but a non-partisan view relatively. The big question, will GST 2.0 offset Donald Trump's tariffs? Make in India and make for India. Can that happen now? Will consumption and thereby investment get a real boost? Will the fiscal deficit rise, as some fear? Will GST 2.0 really be a booster dose, the Diwali gift that the Prime Minister is promising? Joined by Nilesh Shah, Managing Director, Kotak Mahindra Asset Management, member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. Mukesh Bhutani, Managing Partner, BMR Legal, one of the country's leading indirect tax experts. Subhash Chandra Garg, former Finance Secretary, someone who was part of Arun Jaitley's team when GST was being brought in. K. Raghunathan, National Chairman, Association of Indian Entrepreneurs. Sumant Sinha, Founder, Chairman and CEO of Renew, also joining us. I want to get each and every one of you to respond to this major step. Government calling it a big Diwali bonus, opposition saying 8 years too late. Nilesh Shah, how do you see it? Do you believe it's too little too late, or do you believe it's come at the right time, will offset Trump's tariffs in particular?
So it is a step in the right direction. It will partially offset the tariff impact of America. More importantly, if we can find other countries for exports, combined, this can reduce significantly the adverse impact of US tariff. This GST reduction and slab rationalization will target many things. One, it will boost consumption with about 48,000 crore put in the pockets of consumers. Second, the hope will be that it will revive private investment as capacity utilization bumps up. Inflation will come down, which will give boost to RBI to pursue more liquidity and rate cuts. Finally, this tariffs will partially offset US adverse impact of tariff. And the fiscal slippage at about 7-8 basis points is something which is manageable. And if growth indeed recovers, then maybe we won't even have adverse impact on fiscal side. So this is one tir kai nishan.
One tir kai nishan, which is of course the slogan which the government is giving at the moment. But let's look at the practical aspect and get you in, Sumant Sinha. You head one of India's largest renewable energy companies. Do you believe that business confidence will return? I'm looking at the latest Business Today survey, which says that business confidence is among its lowest for the last 11 quarters. So will this now revive the business confidence that has seemingly been lacking for several quarters now?
Yeah, look, Rajdeep, I think this is a pretty game-changing move on the part of the government. And you can quibble over whether it should have been done earlier or later. The good news is it's happened. And I think from this point on, there will be a number of positive impacts. Just for example, if you take the power sector, the cost of all renewable energy is going to come down because GST for our sector has been reduced from 12% to 5%, which means lower power costs to end consumers, which means lower input costs, and therefore, hopefully, a reduction in the inflationary pressure, as Nilesh was saying as well. And so all of those are things that are going to result in positive momentum in the economy by bringing the cost of doing business down a little bit. It'll put more demand in the hands of consumers. And all of that is going to be a fiscal stimulus and a demand stimulus to revive the economy even further. I shouldn't have used the word revive. I think really to grow the economy even further. 7.8% in Q1 is already very good numbers. And I think that we should be, fairly positive about the fact that this is now going to allow us to obviously deal with the impact of the Trump situation on the tariffs. But I think even leaving that aside, I think this is a phenomenal step forward to grow the economy faster and further. So I think
I just want to ask you this. Yeah. A few years ago, the corporates got a corporate tax relief. That too, there was a presumption that they would then use the monies collected, the tax breaks to reinvest in the economy, to revive animal spirits. It never happened. Yes, COVID came a few months later. But the truth is that there has been a tepid demand. Are you telling me that all of that will change now?
I'm not saying that all of that will change, but I think that there is certainly going to be a significant incremental boost to the economy. Whether that results in 0.5% growth or 1% growth or more or less, hard to say. But keep in mind that without this, the economy would have been doing less well. And so even to your point around tax reductions in the earlier sort of years, perhaps the economy would have done less well if those had not happened. So it's great that the government is doing this. As I said, it's going to bring down a lot of the input costs, bring down inflation, allow the RBI to cut interest rates. So there are multiple benefits that we as an economy are going to get from getting all of this done. And I think, the overall reduction in prices is going to be very positive for us. It'll allow us to pass on a lot of that benefit in the form of lower prices for, let's say, power in our case. So I think...
So you're saying that the benefits will be passed on to the consumer. Subhash Garg, as someone who was involved with the finance ministry when GST 1.0, if I may call it, was being rolled out, you were smiling when you were hearing Sumant Sinha. Why? Is there a sense of skepticism among some who are critics of this government's economic policies that, look, there is something more fundamentally wrong, which is why demand and business confidence has not picked up?
See, I think the contradiction which I see, let me first welcome the simplification, the reform in the rate structure, which is overdue. It's a continuum carried on from 1998. We have had enormously long journey to come to this stage, and this is part of that. So I welcome that. But
could it have been done earlier? In your view, could it have been done earlier as someone who was involved?
Of course, it could have been done earlier. The government had also taken some of the steps even earlier, bringing the digitalization and a lot of other things, but it could have been done earlier. No doubt about this. But whenever it happened, even now, I think it's a welcome step towards that. But what I was a little skeptical is that if we believe that this 48,000 crore of the tax giveaway can create such a large consumption, investment boost, then we are contradicting ourselves. Either the giveaway is much more than 48,000, or the impact would not be as we all are trying to make up. That is where I think we need to get the numbers right. In my judgment, the loss or the fiscal implication is about 2 lakh crore, not 48,000 crore. And that is what makes it a little more substantial as far as the economy is concerned in terms of consumption and all. Here, we're not, if we are looking at it from the point of view of sort of countering the Trump tariff effect or something. By the way, exports attract no GST, and therefore exports effect is not there. The idea is perhaps that the exports which we will lose might be compensated by the domestic demand from this kind of reduction in the GST. That is where I think we need to
Right.
do a little more careful calculations. Look at
So-
two items. Look at two items, the textile, which is being hit by the Trump tariffs, and the gems and jewelry, which is also being hit. We are a major exporter.
Right.
Now, on the textile, actually the GST has been increased for 2,500 rupees and all. So whatever was not exported, will it be consumed in the domestic demand because the GST is going up? So that is where there is no change in the gems and jewelry sector as far as the GST rates are concerned. So how
Okay.
it will, yeah.
So yeah, I think you make an interesting point there to see whether domestic demand will really get stimulated, which is the big challenge for the government and the hope, of course. But Mukesh Bhutani, I want to bring you in because there is a lot of people who have had to deal with GST Inspector Raj have spoken to me about the cost of compliance, the real sheer volume of forms that had to be filled in for the longest time, the fact that there was almost punitive measures, even criminal measures against those who are seen not to follow GST, not treating it as a civil offense. Do you believe all of that will end with this simplification?
Well, Rajdeep, the most important change in this GST Council meeting has been the operationalization of the GST appellate tribunal. This, I think, will go a long way, not just to be able to address the audits and demands and disputes for the last 7 years, but also set out an element of precedence. One of the reasons the GST disputes had been high was the classification challenges. Now, classification challenges were there even in the erstwhile excise law and still continues to be there in the customs law as well. But that was largely because of the that you have now state revenue officials and federal revenue officials coming together under a common forum, and also because of the multiplicity of the compliance requirement. So what this GST Council has done has also simplified the process for filing the returns. So you can expect that this so-called Inspector Raj that was prevalent will be tamed to some extent in the future as well. So I think GST tribunalization also is another move which ought to have come in at the time of the design stage way back in 2016, but unfortunately it was delayed. And one of the reasons for delay was also the constitutional aspect in relation to the appointment of members for the GST tribunal.
I want to bring in now K. Raghunathan. He's National Chairman, Association of Indian Entrepreneurs, deals with MSMEs primarily. Mr. Raghunathan, MSMEs are the ones who've had the maximum complaints, some believe, with GST, again, costs of compliance, and thereby they should be the ones presumably welcoming it. Do you welcome what the government has done or not?
Rajdeep, there are two aspects of beneficiaries. One is the consumers, the other one is the corporates. MSMEs have been left out. It is very disappointing that a 98,000 crore loss of revenue to the government with an additional 45,000 crore coming in from the sin tax, which is constituting 0.13% of the total GDP, will stimulate the consumer market. Let's understand this very clearly. There are beneficiaries, which are consumers. Those who are day-to-day buying materials will benefit. Those who are retired and taking policies, whether life or medical, will stand to gain. But they are not going to increase their consumption because of the gain. They will use the gain to repay their loans. The personal loans are very high today in the market, and people are not able to make their ends meet. Now, coming to the MSME aspect of it, MSME, let's take only micro industries, tiny industries, and small traders. All the three of them will now have much more aggressive survival after these setbacks. Let me explain to you why. Now, earlier, the small entrepreneurs who made products were taxed at 5%. Now, the big players have also been equalized to the 5%. Most of the products will now compete with the small localized makers' products. And thereby, corporates will get the benefit in totality in every aspect of it.
No,
MSME
Raghunathan, for
asked
the
for
longest,
three
no,
things.
1 minute. You're saying that you will have to compete with the big players who will get the same benefits. But for the longest time, you wanted a rationalization of the tax structure. The government does it, and you're yet complaining.
There are three aspects of the GST, Rajdeep. First is the tax structure. The second is the compliance aspects. And the third is after the notice is served, how redressal of the problem is. I'm limiting myself to the tiny industries and micro enterprises. Now, the government should have done increase of the threshold limit from 40 lakhs for manufacturer, 20 lakhs for service industries to 1 crore and 50 lakhs respectively. If they had done that, then most of the small players would have been away from the clutches of the GST compliances aspect. You and I read the UPI went very high in Bangalore. Several traders were served with the GST notices. Even today in Coimbatore, 23,000 GST notices have been served. The associations have taken out a separate procession to the collector and gave them the referendum. We are inducing fear among the entrepreneurs.
You're saying you needed a greater cushion for the MSMEs so that they were given, they were not put through what you're calling a punitive compliance regime. Nilesh Shah, you want to respond to what you're hearing? Ultimately, the aim will have to be also to revive MSMEs. They are the ones who perhaps need to really take the economy to the next level. That's been the challenge for this government in many ways. The big players are in any case have already had their windfall corporate tax breaks a few years ago.
So Rajdeep, we have to support competitive industries. We cannot support inefficient industries. Suppose if our IT services was dominated by small and medium enterprises, do you think we would have got $200 billion of exports? Do you think we would have created 10% of GDP? If our pharma companies were dominated by small and medium enterprises, do you think we would have become supplier of 40% of generic medicine to US? On the other hand, you can go and see in Morbi how small tiles manufacturer have outperformed Chinese imports. They are exporting now against Chinese exports in Middle East. They are going to Europe. So we have to support all those MSMEs and large players who are competitive. People who want to take, shadow under inefficiencies and uncompetitiveness, who wants to shortchange rules and regulation, we should not support at all. Now, the point raised in simplifying processes of GST is very important. We have put enormous compliance burden on our entrepreneurs. And there are so many regulations, like you have to keep spittoons in your factory. Angrez chale gaye, spittoons hamare liye chhod ke chale gaye. We have a rule which says that if your canteen cook's health record is not maintained for 3 years, you will be put behind the bar. I mean, canteen cook's health record, what is the definition? आपने ECG रखा तो वो, 2D echo मांगेगा, 2D echo रखा तो ECG मांगेगा. So is there a need to simplify processes and empower our entrepreneurs? Undoubtedly, yes. But we must support only those entrepreneurs who are competitive, not those entrepreneurs who are taking advantage of shortcuts.
I take your point, Nilesh, but do you believe that this will lead to an ease of doing business? That's the question. There's one point that it will benefit consumers. It's a Diwali gift. It's a Diwali bonanza. But the truth of the matter is, how do you also ensure ease of doing business to really trigger, in a way, the animal spirits of the economy?
So
precisely for the reason you're saying, the kind
burden.
of outdated laws and reduce the compliance burden, for example.
Absolutely. I mean, all these laws, if a fund manager like me know, I'm sure industrialist would have presented to the government. Why is government not removing it?
Okay. Subhash Garg, is the problem still therefore the resistance at different levels? What I find amazing is that it's only now that the government has woken up, for example, on health and life insurance, which for the longest time, several people were saying, why do you need a GST on health and life insurance? Is the government, did it require the Trump tariffs in a way for the government to wake up to this?
I don't really think that it is the Trump tariffs which is behind the GST rejig. I think
No,
it's
so why was health and life insurance put in the first place at 18%? It should have been 0% right at the very outset.
obviously this has been a mistake. This health insurance and life insurance is not required to be taxed at 8%, 18%. It should have been brought much earlier, but it has been done now because of Trump tariff is what I disagree.
Right.
I think
Okay.
the biggest motivation for this reform based kind of giveaway of a very large amount is actually the populist, and the probably the Bihar elections are there, which is guiding it. You see what has
But that is
happened.
being unusually cynical. The government says we've been holding 50, 60 meetings for the last 6-8 months. You're saying it's only with an eye to Bihar election. Seems a little bit cynical, isn't it?
You may say so. Why does the 1 lakh crore income tax benefit come few days before Delhi election? Why does the GST reform or GST giveaway or Diwali gift comes a couple of months before the Bihar election? Why is it that if rationalization is to be done, let us say, of the rate, why is it that only the larger rates are getting towards the lower rates? Where is the revenue neutral aspect of it? Reform should actually result into a rationalization, simplification reform, but of a structure where you don't lose. If you are actually giving away tax revenue in a situation where your tax revenues are actually at very big threat. I don't know whether you saw July number of the CGA suggests that income tax receipts were about 35% lower than the previous year. The total gross receipts of the government were 11% lower than the previous year. There is a very large giveaway which is already happening. And on top of that, if you further give away the GST revenue, it's not reform in that sense. Reform should also lead to higher fiscal revenues.
Okay, Mr. Garg, I take your point but either way, the fact is, I think there is a general consensus here. Well, Mr. Raghunathan, I'll give you 30 seconds. Quickly respond. You heard from Nilesh Shah. He says, uncompetitive businesses or businesses that cut corners will not get breaks.
Nobody cuts corner. It's only the survival, and nobody deliberately or wantedly cuts corner. But Rajdeep, what I wanted to insist upon is the government should not think that having come out with the GST reform, they have touched the peak of it, and everything else will automatically go. The export setback from the US tariff is entirely a different ballgame. It affects a sector which does not come under the purview of GST at all, unless otherwise they get their refund or their input tax credit. So therefore, a separate stimulus has to be announced. Already we are late. It has to be announced immediately for the thousands of crores of stocks which are lying unsold. The packing credit needs to be extended to them. The EMIs have to be eased out to them. The additional working
So you're
capital
asking for a
has to be given to the
separate package for MSMEs, which would make it a triple dhamaka in that sense around Diwali. We'll wait and see whether that happens. That's also not really reforms. That's really, again, asking for benefits, which will not really result in the kind of long-term reform we need. But I appreciate my guest joining me here on our talking point. It's a rare day when there is a broad consensus, even though there are concerns on specific issues that still remain. I thank you all very much for joining us on that GST debate. Another story, we've been tracking North India continuing to reel under the impact of relentless monsoon rains, triggering widespread floods, landslides and devastation across several states. Let's take a look at some of the visuals that are coming in. Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Delhi, all affected. The Supreme Court has now taken notice of these landslides and floods in Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal and Uttarakhand, sought a response from the central government, the National Disaster Management Authority and the respective state governments. Citing videos showing floating timber logs in Himachal, the court observed prima facie there seems to be an illegal felling of trees. Punjab has been battered and broken by the floods. The death toll has climbed to 43. Massive rescue operations underway involving over 30 teams from the NDRF, Army, Navy and Air Force. The demand for boats in Punjab has surged in the wake of the catastrophic floods. As rain batters Punjab, AAP National Convener Arvind Kejriwal went on the ground to inspect the flood-affected areas in Kapurthala. Union Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan also visited the flooded areas in Gurdaspur. The rising water levels of the Satluj are forcing widespread evacuation in Punjab. NDRF teams were seen evacuating people from Fazilka. Severe waterlogging witnessed as water from the overflowing Yamuna River entered parts of the national capital. Geeta Colony in East Delhi is bearing the brunt. Workers claim they have not received much help from the government till now. Now, even as Punjab battles its worst flood since 1988, some of its biggest stars are stepping up. From actors to singers, Punjab celebrities are not just lending their voice, they're leading from the front, bringing hope and succor to those in need. Take a look.
All hands on deck. As Punjab battles its worst floods since 1988, its celebrities are pitching in big time. Bollywood actor Sonu Sood, who is well known for his philanthropy, has extended a helping hand. His sister Malvika Sood is leading relief efforts on the ground.
कहते हैं कि पंजाब का जो खून है वो कहीं भी हो वो ज़रूर वो रगों में बिकता है और जब भी दिक्कत आएगी पंजाबी जो है ज़रूर आगे आएगा। आज हर पीड़ित लोगों की सेवा के लिए चाहे सोनू सूद कहीं भी हो वो हमेशा पंजाब वालों को भी मालूम है और पूरी दुनिया को मालूम है, चाहे वो पंजाब हो चाहे वो जम्मू हो, सोनू सूद हमेशा आगे आता है।
Singer Inderjeet Singh Nikku says he launched into relief work without any second thoughts.
मैंने जितना मेरे को लगता है पीछे मैंने पैसा कमाया सारा मैंने इन चीज़ों में अभी लगाने का फैसला किया है कि अगर 2 साल में मैं इतना पैसा कमा के इधर लगाऊंगा, अगर हमारे पंजाबी खुशहाल हो गए इसके बाद जितना पैसा कमाना चाहते हैं आराम से कमा सकते हैं। और मेरे साथ साथ मेरे पीछे इतने बंदे आ चुके हैं, मेरे को लगता है मेरा पैसा शायद जरूरत ही नहीं पड़े।
काफी लोग इंस्पायर हुए हैं,
बहुत लोग आके मेरे पीछे और बहुत लोगों ने फंड्स भेजने शुरू किए हैं।
Singer Jas Bajwa has been on the ground from the very first day.
हम लिस्टें बना रहे हैं एक एक गांव में जिसका घर गिर गया, जिसके डंगर मर गए, जिसका कोई कोठा गिर गया, वो जब भी ये पानी उतर जाएगा उसके बाद हम पूरा गांव सैनिटाइज करेंगे। सबसे जो ज्यादा जरूरी बात है, इनका फर्नीचर खराब हो गया क्योंकि 4-4 फुट ड्राइंग रूम में
छतें नहीं रही हैं अभी।
छतें भी मैडम, छतें भी जो हमारा बेसिक सामान है घर का, कुर्सियां, बेड, मंजे, वो पानी के बीच में है, वो फर्नीचर हम प्रोवाइड करवाएंगे।
Many others like singer Sunanda Sharma have been distributing relief kits to flood victims. In Punjab's hour of crisis, its heroes are inspiring others with their social work. With Aman Bhardwaj and Navjot Randhawa, Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, let's turn from there to our good news today story, and that is a pretty special one. It's a historic moment for Indian Scrabble lovers as a 14-year-old Scrabble prodigy, Madhav Gopal Kamath, has won the 2025 World Youth Scrabble Championship in Malaysia's Kuala Lumpur. With this victory, Madhav becomes the first Indian ever to claim a major global Scrabble title, a Delhi teen competing with 218 players from 18 nations to win that big prize. And guess who's joining us as our special guest today? Madhav Gopal Kamath, India's first World Youth Scrabble Champion. Madhav, congratulations. Tell us what it takes to become a Scrabble champion for those of us who play Scrabble but are not world champions at it. What's made it so special? I'm told you started playing it at the age of 6.
Yes, that's correct. So the first thing it takes is a lot of commitment, a lot of dedication to the game. It's not as easy as just reading a bunch of books or reading the dictionary. It takes quite a bit of dedicated effort and practice and studying. But the other thing you need to do is just enjoy the game as much as you can, because the more you enjoy it, the more you'll be able to play it and the better you'll get at it as a result.
But Madhav, you're a school student, you've got school studies, exams. How many hours a day do you practice? Do you need to practice Scrabble day after day to become a world champion? And who do you practice with?
Yeah, So I practice for about half an hour to 1 hour a day. That's the minimum I try to do a day. And I practice mostly by myself, so there's online apps and programs for it. So I'll practice by myself, but I'll also play games with my father, who's also a Scrabble player, and with some of the other kids from India who play Scrabble.
You know, we've seen people compulsively playing games now, all these online games, Wordle, Sudoku, but Scrabble is a bit of an old world game. So what made you take to Scrabble? What is it about Scrabble that excites you so much?
So Scrabble might be seen as an old world game, and in a way it is, because each individual game of Scrabble can take up to an hour, but it's still very fast paced, it's very mind sport focused, so in that sense it's quite similar to chess, and it's at the intersection of English and maths, which are two of my most favorite things.
And are there lots of
like
young
how it combines strategy and just knowing.
And like we have chess clubs, do we have lots of Scrabble clubs across the country? Are you playing with people of your age, or do you end up playing with, say, people like me in their 60s?
So there's a wide variety of people of ages playing Scrabble, but yeah, the majority would be adults. It's still not that common amongst kids. So there are definitely other kids, but that's not that concentrated. And yeah, there are Scrabble clubs all over India, but mostly situated in metro cities. So Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore have very active clubs. The majority of members would be adults, but there are a good number of children, and that's increasing.
Can I ask you, give us two of the highest scoring, hard to play words in Scrabble. What for you are some of the hardest words? What were some of the words that helped you win the World Championship?
So, yeah, there's a lot of archaic,
you remember any of them?
Obscure words that you have to play. So a lot. Yeah, so I think the funniest or the weirdest word in a way that I played was the word cow tree. It's a specific type of tree that has some relation to a cow, but it's an interesting word, yeah.
Cow tree. Okay, I'm going to tell you one as I end.
The word is literally
Do you know, I'm going to ask you a question, Madhav. Do you know what is the highest scoring word ever possible in Scrabble?
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, I do know that one. It's oxyphenbutazone. It's a chemical, but...
That's right. The highest scoring word ever possible in Scrabble is oxyphenbutazone for 1,778 points. But Madhav, you made us proud as India's first ever Scrabble champion. May you take your sport to greater heights. And it's great to see India right there on the Scrabble map. Thanks very much, Madhav, for joining me on the show tonight. Okay, good to have a world champion in Scrabble joining us, World Youth Champion. I want to leave you though with sad news. The Italian fashion mogul Giorgio Armani has passed away at the age of 91 due to an age-related illness. Renowned in the fashion world as the king of fashion, Armani is credited with shifting the global fashion epicenter from Paris to Milan, building the iconic eponymous empire that changed how the world dresses. Remember, when you associate brands that now have gone beyond clothing into accessories, home furnishing, perfumes and cosmetics, global empire now valued at over $10 billion. Giorgio Armani is no more. Goodbye to one of the kings of fashion. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubh Ratri. Jai Hind, Namaskar.